I had a family vacation very recently. Family vacations are usually kind of like a hit and miss prospect for me. I remember a couple years ago I went up to Bass Lake. And Bass Lake's kind of near Yosemite. If you haven't been there, it's a beautiful lake. We actually have a family picture of us. You got me on the side, you got my family there, we're sitting on the dock, we got the lake behind us, we got trees, we got fog, except it's not fog, it is smoke blowing from a fire burning about 2 miles away. Welcome to California, everybody. We're burning and drowning all at the same time. It's sheer madness. So this past summer, we took a trip up to Washington. No, not Washington, D.C., however, I can see where you might have gotten confused with that. However, I've always drawn this one distinct difference. In Washington State, the only thing that you have to worry about there is angry wildlife. In Washington, D.C., you have to worry about an angry everything else. So we decided to drive to Washington. It's a 20-hour car trip. And in a 20-hour car trip, you find out very quickly that things become scarce. These things including sleep, entertainment, food. And, okay, so in the entertainment section we got going on here, we are listening to the wonderful the story of the behind-the-scenes look at The Princess Bride, as narrated by Carrie Elwes. And my brother and I we got so bored. My brother and I invented this game called What's Between the Cushion Couches. And we started, cushion couches, what am I talking about? I think they invented something new here. Anyway, so the way the game works is we plunged our hands in between the seats and we started feeling around. I generally lost this game. My brother usually pulled out like a $20 bill or something. I found a retainer once, maybe. And the second thing that became very scarce on this car trip was food. And I'm sorry, a Trader Joe's bag full of apples and carrots and celery is not food. I became so hungry that I started hallucinating. I mean, I looked over at my brother and he turned into a KFC bucket. I looked over and I'm like, Mom, there's a KFC bucket staring at me. She's like, shut up, honey, I see it too. And so I'm getting desperate here, so I start playing a one-man game of What's Between the Cushion Seat, and I start feeling around, and I find it, and I pull it out, and in between my fingers is a Cheeto. Now you say that's gross, but you know what, I'm not one to discriminate with floor food, because if you really think about it, everything is floor food. I mean, you got something that's not food, like carrots, that's been grown in the ground for so long, someone just takes it and they pull it out of the ground, it's got dirt and worms all over it, and just kind of he throws it in the back of a 70s Chevy and he drives on down his road. And then they take it to a barn with a hose hooked up to a spigot that's called the washing station. And they proceed to wash off the carrot or the not food until it becomes orange again. Then they throw it back into the cart and then it drives off to a grocery store. At the grocery store, they put the carrots onto this giant display and people walk by it, they look at it, they sniff it, they put it back because they realize it's gross. And the next guy comes up and he touches it with his grubby hands and you're just like, ew. And he puts it back and then you finally show up. And you take this carrot and you're like, hey, this looks clean. So you put it in your grocery bag and you walk on your merry way back home. You put it on the counter, you go to grab a knife and you turn around to the carrots on the floor. You look at it and you think to yourself, oh, now it's ruined. Putting this into my mind, I think, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I take the Cheeto and I plunge it into my mouth hole. This Cheeto both tastes and feels like an eraser. About an hour later, you see my head hanging out the window while my brother, the KFC bucket, and my sister, the In-N-Out burger, are playing a game of how many cars can Colby hit with his puke. Needless to say, that trip was definitely more about the destination than the journey. Now, before I go, I got one more thing to say for all of you who were here at the last show. Birth. Thank you guys, good and awesome.